Hello, everybody. This is L&D Talk. Today's Thursday. We're talking about Internet of Things. It's Internet of Things Thursday. And with my absent but now present co-host, Anthony Altieri. And wait. And rats. Hold on a second. I'm totally forgetting. I knew I needed a script.
L&D talk L&D talk with your host Brent Schlenker.
Oh, it stopped. Woo, okay, hello. That's why I need a monitor. Anyways, my name is Brent Schlenker. I am Chief Learning Officer at Litmus. Litmus.com/blog is where you can read all of my thoughts that either extend from these conversations or are something totally different. You can find us at C3 in May. We're going to have our corporate event, Calidus Cloud. You can check it out at litmus.com/C3. 2 weeks after that, we're at ATD, and I think a handful of us in this today are going to be at that event. Very cool. In where are we at? Denver, I think is where ATD is, and that's a pretty huge event. So that's the upcoming stuff. And like I said, today's L&D Talk, and we're going to talk about the Internet of Things and how it relates to learning and what we do as corporate training, learning, and development professionals. So, Anthony, welcome.
Yay.
You know what I need to start doing is giving my co-hosts an opportunity to introduce themselves as well instead of waiting till the end. So who are you and what do you do, Anthony?
I'm nobody. I'm just a fat, bald Packers fan. No, my name is Anthony Altieri, and I'm an idiot, an instructional developer for the Internet of Things, or the other one. Really, probably works too, if I'm honest. So what I like to do, I've worked in e-learning for quite a while, about 10 years or so now. What I've really started to do lately is looking, especially with XAPI, how we can bring e-learning back into the real world and using sensors and using things that are in the real world that we can touch and push and pull and do stuff with and still have that record in the same place that our e-learning content is.
Indeed. That's what you do. So we've talked a lot about the Internet of Things. We've talked... we include XAPI in that conversation. We've talked about this stuff in the past. And this is actually probably our only second time around with you as my official co-host. I don't even remember what we talked about last week. Or maybe this is even the first time, is it?
I think it's official co-host. Last week I was just an obnoxious guest.
Just an obnoxious participant in general. No, so Internet of Things. So let's just do a quick recap. What does that mean? Like, why would corporate training, learning, and development professionals even consider discussing the Internet of Things and the work that we do?
So it's a difficult conversation to have because Internet of Things is exactly as vague as it sounds. It's the Internet of Things, and a thing is defined loosely as something that's not generally regarded or accepted as a full computer. So for the longest time, things like your smartphone was considered Internet of Things, even though this has much more computer power than what we used to put a man on the moon 50-odd years ago. So the nice thing for corporate training is, especially when you're looking at physical training or things, when you're training skills that exist in the real world, mechanical training, how to work on a machine, how to operate a machine, looking at one of the examples I used, my daughter was in high school and had to run the mile for the Presidential Physical Fitness Challenge that they do every year.
Yes.
And so to do that, they don't just put the kids in a field and say, hey, run a mile. you, for a couple the weeks leading up to it, you run and you practice and you train. And, so for example, now these things, how many of us have our cell phones and we have Runkeeper or whatever the one, I forget the one I use, Run Track or something like that. You have all these applications that are there, your step counters, all these things. You could use those and report back to the school. So now the school can get a measure of, oh, well, hey, young Anthony Altieri ran the mile in this many minutes, and you're not there with a stopwatch or anything. You're getting real-time statistics from these sensors. So from an L&D standpoint, those are the two obvious. And then you get into the slightly less obvious and some that are just downright freaking cool and awesome. And so I will I'm going to post this link. Let me copy it again. Make sure I have it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting from somebody mentioned this the last time we talked about when we were discussing corporate stuff, that actually there's been a lot of sort of Internet of Thinginess already involved in corporate spaces. So I can remember 20 years ago when I worked at Intel, my badge had a chip inside of it, and they knew when I walked through the doors, when I was on site, when I was off site. Like you could wave it in front of a lock and it would open up a lock and all that kind of stuff. And so obviously back then it wasn't connected to the cloud or, anything like that. But just this idea that you can have a small device or a small thing that communicates with another thing has been around for a while. So this isn't really that new.
No, not at all. It's, and especially in that kind of situation where you have RFID, for years it's been RFID, radio frequency identification. Those cards have been around forever, and they are for a bunch of physical reasons, but also for logical ones as far as basically the way these work is you hold a card up to a reader that creates a magnetic force that resonates the antenna in the card and gives the card power. Now, I could get into all the Tesla-esque physics of how beaming energy works, but that would even put me to sleep, and I love that. I'm honest. But
that's okay. We don't mind geeking out with you.
But that was great physical technology because the cards had no moving parts. Those cards could not break, they could not wear out unless you physically took one and bent it, broke it in half or something. But back then, you had these things. They were hardwired with the old telephone lines. It was before Ethernet even, or before Ethernet was as prolific as it is. You had these phone lines, and they were, 900 baud UART serial connections back to a main computer. And it would say, hey, I just scanned this card. Should I open the door or not?
Yeah.
And back then, the computer would say yes or no, and then it would open the door. And now we don't have to have those. In fact, here, hold one moment.
So, Don, I'm going to have you talk while Anthony talks about that. I just want to say this real quick. I want you to talk about what you're thinking about a little bit more about LG and Apple. Maybe you can, if you feel like it, you jump into the other seat in a few minutes, but finish what you're talking about, Anthony.
But so this basically is a modern version of what you're discussing, where, this is NFC, or MyFair, which is a subset of NFC, which is a subset of RFID. And here's the computer, and so now it's wireless. I just plug power into this, and it uses our favorite protocol, XAPI, to communicate with the server. And through XAPI statements, it says open the door or don't. Based on that. So we've gotten away from the wire, we've gotten away from everything. And now this little computer, which is the size of my thumb, it's a particle photon. Not only can we record, should you have access, but that computer can also take a look at, all right, well, we've got, okay, Anthony's allowed in here. His job title allows him to be in here. but he needs training to enter this room. So now I can also look at the LMS. If the LMS is, or if there's an LRS attached to it and I'm tracking my training with XAPI, I can go look at that and say, hey, does he have this training to be in here? And if the LMS says yes, oh, okay, I'm going to let him in. If not, it can say, your improper training or whatever else.
I wonder if, so this is interesting. I was just thinking through kind of how could we utilize some of these things that are being used for everyday life in a training setting. And it just sort of dawned on me that like with these gloves, for example, not only can those gloves be used to communicate, but couldn't they also be utilized as a training tool to teach somebody sign language?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So this is the link. I put it in the chat a moment ago, and it should be on the screen still. New to hosting. But yeah, so basically these gloves, which are just the coolest thing. This just blows my mind. If you take a look at them and read the article, it's an amazing article. These two gentlemen that worked on this are students at the University of Washington, and they are two absolutely brilliant young guys. They deserve all the credit in the world for this and more. What they've done is they've taken these gloves, and they started life. They look as like I don't know, maybe isotoner driving gloves or something. They started out as pretty innocuous little things. And by adding an Arduino Mini to it, some sensors, some accelerometers, so you can see how your hands are moving, it translates that motion into speech. So having studied ASL or American Sign Language myself and not succeeding, I'll be the first to admit, I can say, and I'll be honest, I had the same problem. I tried studying Japanese, and I had the same problem with that. Is learning to speak a language, be it the physical language of ASL or the verbal language of Japanese, is a give and take. It's not just enough for me to form words. You have to be able to know that I'm saying them right and be able to respond, and I have to be able to accept that response and consume it.
Yeah, it's a conversational aspect.
So if I'm just practicing ASL in the mirror, I don't, if I'm doing something wrong and I keep practicing that wrong skill, I'm going to enforce that. With gloves like these now, it's translating what I'm saying. So, if I go to do thank you, and I do the motion and it comes up with dog or something, oh, hey, I did something wrong. So
hopefully it doesn't come up with anything worse than that.
This is a video medium. We won't get into that. I did learn the good signs. I'll just leave it at that.
The universal signs.
Well, I'm in Pennsylvania. You learn those as part of driver's ed. But you figure if you are someone who has a deaf member of the family or you want to work in that community, knowing ASL is very important, and being able to practice and get that feedback that, yeah, you're making the signs at least close to correct. It's huge.
Right. So let's think about this like from a manufacturing or a physical world space, because the other thought I had was, like right now, we look at a lot of technologies like alternate reality, for example, and let's say a car mechanic, and we've got the sort of augmented reality, where they wear the one thing and it either brings up some instructions or plays a little video in their views. Oh, that's what I need to do. Okay, but what if that could be incorporated with some sort of Internet of Things type glove, where if it actually knows where your hands are moving, how you're holding the tools, if you're pointing them in the wrong direction or whatever, and you could get some sort of feedback on your actual tactile movements. I don't know if there'd be much benefit there or not, but it's just crossed my mind.
So there's no way around this. We're all grown adults. We have to accept certain realities, and that is just about every technical innovation that happens involving the internet comes from one of two sources: gaming and porn. Okay? Let's just accept that.
We do accept that.
We have Blu-ray and VHS because of porn, not because it was a better technical specification.
Yeah.
It was not a better technical specification. So in this case, we're going to ignore what the latter's doing, although they're doing some incredibly cool and icky things. We'll look at the gaming because that's something we can talk about on a family-friendly lab. But you look at like what Oculus Rift is doing now, where you a full the full Oculus Rift experience, I guess, where you've got that physical gun, you're wearing those weird bowling shoes, and you're in that platform. I don't know if you've ever seen the platform with that big bowl that you can actually run in.
Oh yeah.
And then you've got the glasses. And
that's the gerbil ball, we called it. We actually had it at DevLearn one year.
I've heard really cool and really horrifying things about that.
It's hard. It's hard to run around in it because it's not a flat surface, and so it takes a while to get comfortable with how it all works. Once you get there, it's not so bad, but it's very not normal.
Well, and it's also you're running but not moving, and your mind doesn't like that, especially if you start turning.
Yeah, the turning is weird.
Yeah. So so we are kind of getting there, and I've seen some work with guys at Oculus Rift and working around them, where they're getting sensors in the shoes so they know how fast you're running, and they know how hard you're running, how hard you're putting your foot down. There's sensors on the plastic guns to know, okay, well, I'm holding it, but am I holding it straight, or am I holding it over here, or wherever? And you're tying all of those together. So the gaming industry is already way ahead of this. Now, to your point, kind of combining that to something like these gloves, for example, and I forget what movie it was in.
Lawnmower Man?
No, it was. It might have even been Star Trek, for all I know. But it was basically, the person was in this virtual environment. They had the goggles on and they had the gloves, and they were putting something together, or maybe they were practicing a surgery or something. And it was completely virtual, but it was tracking where the hands were in relation to this hologram and how they were interacting with it.
Yeah.
So, bringing all of that back to, where your mind was a little earlier with virtual training on how to work on a machine, how to fix a machine. If you want to train somebody how to fix something, well, first you have to break it. It has to be broken for them to fix it. Well, if you have this virtual machine, you want to break it, you just hit a button.
Yeah, and you can break it in many different ways.
Absolutely. And if they can't get
which
it right,
gives you all sorts of options for training.
Yeah. Yeah, and if they don't fix it right, you push another button and it's all back to normal. You can't really do that with a multi-million-dollar, 100-foot-long piece of machinery.
It's a lot more difficult. Trust me. We tried to do that back in the day. I think some of the larger companies even still do this, but there was one point at which I'm not sure if it was Intel or one of the other semiconductor manufacturers. They literally built an entire new semiconductor manufacturing facility specifically just for training purposes. You could produce chips and everything in it, but they didn't send any of that out for production or commercial use or anything like that, because it was strictly to send people there to just train them. It was literally a live simulation. And I just thought that was, I mean, and that was millions and millions and millions of dollars. And I just kept thinking to myself, there's got to be a way to create it. I think a virtual environment, even 20 years ago, would have been a little cheaper, but who knows?
And I can tell you, I don't know if all of them are like this, but a very great deal of the nuclear power plants that are still active on American soil, which is all but one. A lot of them have basically smaller versions of the reactor control room, and it is incredibly accurate. And you have this very maniacal, just very evil person on the other side of that mirror that, okay, we're going to melt down, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And it is 100%, the one that I've been in, were the actual real control consoles out of the reactor. I guess they had replaced them a few years earlier because they have to be cycled every so many years. They didn't want to throw it away. They just put it in the trainer. So now the trainer is 100% accurate.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it's interesting how we get there. What does this do to, like, we're kind of mixing a lot of the alternate reality, virtual reality with the Internet of Things. And I think it's a question of scale too, right? Like, I've noticed in the chat, people talking about, like, our refrigerators talking to the cloud and talking to us and other appliances and things like that. But I think when a lot of people think of the Internet of Things, the visualization or the immediate thought is some small little device. But yet we're also talking about cars being part of the Internet of Things, and other large scale things. And so why is that, I guess, would be my question.
So first, I don't think they were necessarily talking about the refrigerator talking to us so much as telling on us. And it's kind of, I think that's where that was going.
It's very subtle, but true.
It's a minute difference. So a couple other points. So one, I think you can't talk about AR or VR you can't talk about AR without talking about Internet of Things. Because your pathway into that augmented reality is some kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Google Glass, be it these gloves that provide some kind of tactile feedback, whatever. It's an Internet of Thing that opens that door to get you there. But for a lot of people, again, you look at Internet of Things, who doesn't have one of these?
Right.
Or, the conversation also brought up things like the Fitbit, or healthcare is a huge, huge Internet of Things market. I don't have it right here. It's over there. I have the tensiometer for my blood pressure. It's an Internet of Thing. It's Bluetooth connected. When I take it, it sends it straight up to the cloud, and then my doctor yells at me for a week. I have my blood glucose meter is Bluetooth. It goes up to the cloud, and a different doctor calls and yells at me.
Or your refrigerator says, "Don't you dare grab that piece of cake."
Well, GE last year before, I forget now, GE actually introduced a smart line of refrigerators that have USB ports in them for power and for communication. And one of their use cases was you put this thing on there, and it's square. It's the size of a 1-gallon milk jug. So when you put the milk down, it weighs it, and it knows you drank so many ounces of milk. So it can text you, "Hey, you're out of milk."
Or it can tell you you just received this amount of protein, this amount of vitamin, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So now you look at, so like I said, and so in healthcare and in appliance management, there's a lot of appliances now that are smart appliances that will connect to, I'm going to say a warranty service. It's not always the manufacturer. It could be someone else that says, "Hey, this guy's refrigerator is running a little warm. It needs repair."
Right.
You're not even calling them anymore. Your refrigerator is calling its own repair call.
So let's try to circle this back around as we get close to the end here to sort of the corporate training, learning, and development world. We've got all of these consumer things that are happening. What happens when this type of consumer information connection or information collection becomes more prevalent in the workplace? Negatively or positively, how does that impact work in the future?
It can be in so many different ways.
Well, right. Yeah. I guess that's where it's a huge topic to even think about, but I kind of look at it like this. It's like not everybody gets super passionate about their work like the 10 of us that are sitting here talking, and we would be happy thinking about it and talking about it 24/7. Other people, their job is their 8 to 5 thing. They think about their job, they go in, they do their job 8 a.m. to 5, and then they leave and they check out. And so their life outside of work is very different than their life in their job. And so they may be very happy to do Internet of Things stuff in a consumer sense, but think of it as sort of invasive and not something they respect within the walls of their corporate job.
That's one issue, and companies like Google and there's a few others have given their employees I'm gonna say they've given them Fitbits. Maybe it wasn't Fitbit, maybe it was the Up or one of the other ones.
Yeah.
Some kind of a fitness tracker. And the idea was that this was an employer who was really understood the biggest, most important management lesson you can ever learn. You learn from watching the movie The 10 Commandments when Ramses is talking and they get into the argument, and it's what was the line? A healthy slave can make many bricks, a sick slave few, a dead slave none. It's a bit Machiavellian, but companies understand that if I have a healthy workforce, they're more productive.
Yeah.
And so these companies were saying, look, you should have a goal to get this many steps per day or walk this many miles or have this level of activity. And so and they know that some of these things are cost prohibitive. So they said, here, we're going to give it to you. And some people were very happy to get that. They were very receptive. They were thrilled. They saw it as a great opportunity. But to your point, some of them looked at that like Big Brother. No, Big Brother wants to see how many times am I walking away from my desk? How many times, am I doing, whatever? And it was greeted very negatively by certain members of the staff. So even though something that can't, and that so that also illustrates the other side of this. So first of all, the technology is technology. It doesn't. Right. Technology is neither good nor bad. It's how it's used and how it's received. On the reception end, some people were very eager to get this. They were very thrilled. Some people were very negative. And to the employer, the employer could have used that to say, hey, Anthony's walking away from his desk a lot. What's that about? Do we need to intervene here? Is he getting his work done? Is he, just going?
I think that's the part that scares people, right? And I wonder too, from a cultural aspect. So let's just say they are tracking like steps or health or something like that. From a management perspective or a leadership perspective or whatnot, let's say somebody's been under a lot of stress and because they have a whole boatload of deadlines, would the business step in and say, it's okay for you to miss this deadline because you need to get out and get your 10,000 steps in? Or where's that fine line? At what point do they really accept the employees taking control of this kind of stuff and saying, you know what, right now, I got work to do, but you know what? I need to get up and walk around. And then what, is it a cultural thing? Are we ever going to get to that point?
I would be very interested in having this conversation with someone from, say, France, where, this is a country that basically, takes a month off for, for cultural reasons, for health reasons. Whereas in America, the culture definitely became deadline, produce.
Yeah, do as much as you can. Produce. Yeah.
And we're starting to see the downside of that. We're starting to see the negative effects of that. Both in our productivity and in our health. Yay me! I'm the first generation ever expected not to live longer than my parents.
Congratulations.
USA.
Yeah, go.
So
wait. I have something for that. Let me jump in here. We're getting close to running out of time. I think we need to talk about one thing real quick on the corporate training side. Don pointed out something really good. I think probably the best entry point for people that are saying to themselves, okay, how can I include Internet of Things in my training program or my training strategy? I definitely think she's right in that onboarding or new hire orientation is a fabulous place to start. There is, all sorts. There's low risk and high gain, right? You really got nothing to lose. It's a relatively low risk play, but yet if you do it right, it can pay back huge rewards. So I don't know. I'm probably the chat probably already discussed most of this stuff because I saw it go by a little while ago. But what are your thoughts on that, Anthony? Did you see the conversation at all?
So the two things that I saw that was part of it. And agreed. If you get that information to the person straight away, they're not fumbling around for 6 months trying to figure things out. So yeah, that's the onboarding process is pivotal in any situation. And also people forget onboarding includes, I just changed positions in my day job. And there's this thought that, Anthony, all right, you work for this guy now, have fun.
Oh, so transitioning. So maybe we need to do more with transitions. Yeah.
Yeah. So, a transition is onboarding. I'm onboarding onto another team, possibly other responsibilities, other work groups, whatever. And people forget about that too. And that can be huge. In my case, I'm obnoxious and I'm going to ignore it all anyway, so it doesn't matter. But for a good employee, that can make all the difference.
Yeah, I'd love to hear what Paul's doing at Train. I think that's fabulous. The stuff that he's being able to do there is just fantastic. There are not a lot of companies big enough to have somebody like a Paul on staff that is willing to innovate and do cool stuff at their site. So.
Yeah, there's a few. Dawn mentioned copiers, Xerox, and there's another one that I'm losing their name. They will regularly, the copiers will send messages, hey, these guys have made their 50,000 copies for the year or whatever. And the guy just shows up. Hey, we're here to do the tune-up. Train, I was not aware of, but I'd love to hear more about that. There's an airline, I can't say who, unfortunately, but they now track every single part of every single jet engine in their fleet. So they know this jet, this jet took off, they're going to cross that 100 hours of flight time, whatever it is. So they know when that jet lands, the part is already there. They already have the technician there. When that plane lands, they immediately go to work and put it back in the air. And all that's done through sensors in the plane, very rigorous inventory tracking. A lot.
Yeah, so we're at about 8:56 right now, and what a great conversation. Thank you, Anthony.
Thanks for having me.
Where can people find you?
I'm on the Twitters. I'm always on the Twitters at AA_Altieri. I will be in Austin, Texas at Focus on Learning in June, where you can learn how to use the Internet of Things and beacons in particular. We're going to spend a day workshop working with beacons and mobile applications.
Outstanding. Yeah, I'm going to tweet your workshop. I just haven't quite crafted the perfect tweet yet, so maybe a link to your to the description or something like that. But rest assured, it's on my to-do lists. But anyways, thank you, everybody. I saw a couple people needing to drop off, which cued me that they probably have 9 o'clock Pacific time meetings, but we're here every day, 8 a.m. Pacific time to do L&D talk. Tomorrow is Video Friday, hashtag VidFry. If you want to join in the conversation on Twitter. Oh, yes, here we go. My production management skills. Anyways, you can find me on the Litmus blog at litmus.com/blog. You can check out our event that's coming up, litmus.com/C3, which is going to be a super fun event. And you should also be checking out just our website. If you are in need of a learning management system at all, we have some very, very, very interesting new technologies that we will be announcing at the event. So within the next month or so, we will be pushing, really taking a very, very large leap forward in what a learning management platform should be, shifting the conversation from systems to platforms, and very, very, very excited about that. So I try my best not to pimp the product too much, but when I see the stuff that they're doing, our cool tech guys, I get excited about it. So it's all good stuff. So I would encourage you to just check it out and just stick around for the next few months. So anyways, join us tomorrow morning for Video Friday. We'll see you in the morning. Adios.
Bye.